Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
We back at the 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗲.
Word.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you in advance for staying. I'm Alex Black.
And I'm Courtney, better known as 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗲.
And this is the Cool in Real Life podcast where passions and purpose align. Episode 6.
Episode 6.
Woo! This is going to be a special one.
It is a special one.
Yeah.
And let's start with what your life like first.
I was about
Because
to swing it back to that. So
yeah, because the topic.
Yeah. Well, friend, what's your life like?
I'm starting this time.
Mm-hmm.
My life is pretty solid. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm in a really good space right now. Like, I feel really beautiful.
You should.
I feel extremely blessed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
I feel seen. I feel validated.
Yeah.
I feel all of the things. And I think that I was exerting my energy in spaces that weren't like I wasn't reciprocating I wasn't getting it reciprocated back.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally stopped and I started to place that energy in places that do reciprocate back.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel so good.
Yeah.
I feel so good. I just started taking better care of myself health-wise. I started juicing to rev my body up to detox. Just getting myself prepared for that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I feel really, really good. I thought that this time last year is when I made that transition.
Okay.
This time last year is when I stopped eating dairy and meat. And this time around, I'm stepping away from vegan foods that are processed.
Got you.
So a lot of people say that they're vegan, but they're not healthy at all. There's no plants in their base. You know what I mean? It's plant-based as in like made in like a plant.
Yeah.
But not plant-based as in it came from the earth.
Right.
And it's rooted in that, and it's natural, and it's good, and it's healthy. So that's where I'm at right now. And I just feel really, really good about that. I've been praying more.
Yeah.
I've been just thanking God. Sometimes I don't even ask for nothing. I'm just thankful.
Yeah.
And I just say thank you for who you are. And thank you for your hand on my life and not giving up on me.
Yeah.
Because I've had a life. You know what I mean? I've gone through a lot. And I'm extremely blessed to be where I am today. I think that sometimes it's hard to remember that you are living in your prayer. And we just have to be extremely grateful for what we are, where we are, what we have. And then just thanking God for placing things in our way so that tomorrow is even more beautiful. And, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just living in a prayer, and I'm extremely full of gratitude and thankful for everything, every milestone, every heartache, every heartbreak, every tear, every joyous moment. Like, I'm just realizing that all roads led to this. And I'm just thankful. And yeah, man. That's where I'm at right now, like emotionally. I just feel really, really good.
Yeah.
And I realized that like I don't really show myself. And a lot of it is rooted in insecurities. A lot of it is rooted in just like, maybe not a lot of it is rooted in insecurities. I talked about it the other day to one of my friends, and I was like, it was in reference to MF Doom.
Okay.
And we were talking about why MF Doom doesn't show himself, why he did not show himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sure some of it has to be insecurities. You know what I mean? But then a lot of it is just like, why do you need to see me? Because if you see my image, right, it actually takes away from you seeing me. Like, if I can keep this image kind of like hidden, then you're forced to see me.
Yeah.
Like the inward part of me. And I think maybe that's where he was getting at also. Or maybe I'm just assuming for that man.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about myself.
Right.
Like, I want people to actually see Courtney and not see my image. Like, your image can be like, maybe some people might find you unattractive. Maybe some people might find you attractive. And that's a distraction. Those two things are distractions.
Yeah.
So Um, yeah, man.
That's beautiful. I'm really, really glad to hear that. And I can tell, I can hear it in your voice. I can see it on your face.
I feel so good.
As your friend, it's beautiful to see.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
And on a sneaker tip, I ended up like shout out Jordan Brand, but Jordan Brand, y'all gotta like come on, y'all come on. But I ended up really liking the Nigel Sylvester collab
Fire.
that he did with Jordan Brand, and he came out with two colorways, a green colorway and like a charcoal colorway. Both colorways are fire.
Yes.
Both are
Yes.
fire. But I really wanted the green. That was what I fell in love with the shoe because of his collab.
Right.
And I saw like the other colorways that they have coming out down the line. Negativo. I'm cool. I don't like them.
Really?
They're trash. I don't like them.
I haven't even seen. Nah, it's not hitting on nothing.
It ain't hitting. So I thought that it was going to be like a wider release. And I don't know what happened. Like the sneakers app showed them. I'm thinking like, why would you show the sneaker if you're not going to sell it on the sneakers app? And it just ended up being like a really obscure drop. Nobody really knew how to get the sneaker. So I ended up having to pay resale, which I did not want to do.
Right.
And I have a lot of sneakers, like over 200 pairs of sneakers at this point, well over 200 pairs, probably 250 plus. So I'm very mindful of what I buy now. But I really fell in love with them. So I just pulled the trigger and I got both of them, both colorways, just to support the homie. Shout out Nigel.
Everything about that release, like that green colorway, we were talking about it earlier today about how sometimes when they drop a silhouette and there's two of them, one of them is always like, it ain't hitting as much.
Yeah.
The green is absolutely fire.
Fire.
If you had to compare, it is the better one. But that driveway gray,
I think it depends on what your style is.
yeah.
Because the green necessarily isn't better than the charcoal, depending on what you like.
True. That
I
is
think
true.
both
It's
of them,
subjective.
yeah, it's very subjective. I think both of them stand tall in their own right.
Yeah. Amazing.
Especially
So
with
everything.
that lace swap out, put
That
the
lace
white
swap is
laces
gonna
in.
be crazy on that gray. I just loved everything about what the spot that he did. Like even the one with Shorty from Family Matters as his grandma, like that one first. But then the other one that he did with Old Girl on the bike and how they like repurposed that chrome bike with the
Fire.
God.
Fire.
It's something about when I see a visual that like makes me inspired to go create. That's what that did.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that joint woke me up in a good way.
It did. I remember you hit me like, yo. I think you had saved
it.
Yeah. You was like, yo. I was like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. And I just love when Blackness is displayed in such a beautiful way because we're
Yes.
beautiful, man. Like
Yes.
our culture is so beautiful. And I love you can tell that Black people were in the writer's room.
Yes.
Like you can tell that the creatives that were behind that were Black. It's similar to what Joe Fresh Goods is doing. That's why I love Joe Fresh Goods because he centers Blackness so well.
Yeah.
Joshua Kissy is another one. They like certain creatives, they just center Blackness so well.
Yes.
And it just makes you just proud. It just makes you proud. Like, yo, you just feel really seen and represented.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
I loved it.
They putting the culture on their backs. And there's more of y'all. I'm just naming just a few off the top of my head. But yeah, Nigel, he snapped and he came out with the airships that I liked also. I remember when Nike was releasing airships again. And it's kind of like similar to like a Jordan 1.
Yeah.
It's like a Jordan 1 before the Jordan 1.
Right.
And his, honestly, if I'm to be completely honest, I feel like his collab with the airship was one of the better ones to drop.
Okay.
But once again, could not find it. And he had the bike in the back of it. Fire. So,
That's such a like a dope touch.
Yes.
Right. Oh my God.
And like the box, when you feel the box, it actually feels like a driveway.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like it's textured.
Wow.
I love
gotta go touch
details.
it. Yeah.
I love details. Shout out Nigel, man. You snapped. You snapped, homie. You snapped.
I did.
If you see this, you snapped. And for y'all, if you guys are actually like tuned in, I'm gonna actually show the sneakers. We're gonna do a BTS of that.
Yeah.
Unboxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be dope.
Yeah, man. And I think that might be it. I think. Okay. It's been a month.
A beautiful month though.
It has been like, yo, even when it came down to our content, Shout out Mochi, the photographer that we're working with now. Such a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
And that photo shoot, I smiled so much.
Yeah.
Like going back with editing the behind the scenes of that
Mm.
photo shoot,
Mhm.
I just realized that like this was a really, really, really good day.
It was. And I text you that
Yeah.
when I was putting it together. I was like, reliving this, like, it makes me feel good. Like, that was a great day.
That was a great
Yeah.
day. There was like no depression in the building. Like,
Not that day.
not that day.
Yeah.
Bye.
For sure.
Bye, bitch.
Mm.
Excuse my language. I'm grown. Okay. But yeah, man, no, I just realized that and I was just like, I feel really good
Mhm.
and I want to showcase this. So now I just took little stills of myself from that BTS and I
Yeah.
posted it up.
Mm.
And it got it got a lot of good feedback.
I bet it did.
People were just like people were just like, "Yo, you look really happy." I could just feel it off of you. It's
Mhm.
just exuding from you.
Mhm.
And I think that honestly, that's what I want to share with people.
Yeah.
I want to exude greatness and I
Mm.
just want to exude light and I want to exude happiness and joy.
Mhm.
And I just want people to feel that
Yeah.
radiating off of me.
That's
Yeah.
what's up.
And the last month's playlist was really fire. I really enjoyed it. Every moment of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I think that's it.
That's what's up.
No. One
Okay.
last thing. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm now in the space of wanting to go at ownership,
Okay.
wanting to work for myself and cultivating these ideas that can just take me to the next level
Mhm.
and taking my friends with me.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm also at right now,
Word.
leaving healthcare behind.
Mhm.
I don't believe in westernized medicine,
Mhm.
but I am unfortunately a part of that right now. And my prayer to God is just like, if this is where I'm supposed to be, then I'm going to honor it. And I
Mhm.
thank you for it. But please, that hand that's back there, just pull that other
Yeah.
hand out.
Yeah.
Place it on my shoulder. Get me up out of here. Just like grip me up by my hood. Please.
Yo.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Word.
That's it.
Dope.
I just want to create with my homies,
Mhm.
and I think that this project that we're doing with Cool in Real Life, it shows that like you can create dope stuff with your friends.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all.
Word.
That's it.
You're supposed to ask me.
What's your life like, dog? What's your life like?
Okay. So I'm so glad that you said those things because that's exactly how I've felt. I haven't felt this good in years.
Wow.
Like this month has been the best month that I've had in years. Everything about, and you touched on a lot of it. The photo shoot was great. I feel like we really hit our stride. I feel like we just got our feeling back. Like everything
Yeah.
really came easy to us, this month.
Yeah.
We didn't have as much like trials and tribulations, if any, because like we have had them, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think it showed in the work that we've put out this month because we felt it internally and we could produce, better.
Yeah,
So
man.
that was great. It's been a really, really, really good month. Something that I forgot to mention last month during the What's Your Life Like was the fact that for the first time I had to cut off a friend.
Ooh. You ain't tell me that?
Yeah, I did.
We gonna talk after this, cause
You know
child,
who?
my memory be shot.
You know the homegirl I had and what she did with,
Oh.
yeah.
You told me about that. You didn't tell me that you recently like cut this person off
Yeah,
though.
I had to cut her off because I had been working on it in therapy.
Mm.
Um and it was hard for me because I'm like, do I really want to, you know, eliminate her out of my life completely? Is it petty of me for, to feel this way? I really had to work through that. And, she was telling me like, you get to dictate how you want your friends to show up in your life. Nobody else can answer that for you. So then
Mhm.
I've really like had to sit with me being intentional about like how people value me And if you don't show me that you value me, like I have to put you to the side. And
Yeah.
what she did showed me that she just didn't value me, or that's not how I want my friends to show up for me. I wouldn't want my friends to ever do something like that.
Right.
And I had to make the decision to let her go. So I typed it out. I was in the therapy session writing what I was gonna like say to her. And
Good.
she was like helping me. She's like, I don't want her to have like, any holes in what you say. So, revising things.
Shout
And
out your there. Seal it up and seal it up tight.
I wish, dang, did I write it down? I might have, because she gave me like a
Wow.
part to say like at the end, um, that I did put in there. And so, okay, she was like, your behavior let me know how you value our friendship, and I'm not in the place where I'm engaging in relationships that don't value me. That's how I like, ended it.
Ooh.
So, right? She snapped with that. I said, I'm absolutely using it.
Being broken up with as a go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna say that. Go ahead.
And it was funny because, when she was, and I know that she values like being a good friend. And she was. She really taught me a lot about, how to show up, for people and love them, in the way that they need to be. It's just what she did was just so offensive to me that I just couldn't move forward, with it.
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, I'm not going to speak to anything else that you said because you can't. Like, what else are you going to say about anything else that I've said? She's like, I'm going to just touch on the last part. And she found a hole to poke in that. And it is what it is. I let her say it and I just left it alone. Because it's nothing that I could have said that was going to change her mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I left it at that. And it was just weird to me because like I've never had to do that before with a friend. I've had my longest and greatest friendships since high school.
Yeah.
Even the people who have like come back into my life, like Crockett or Nathan, like I've known them since kindergarten, like elementary school.
Yeah.
So like I've just had like long lasting friendships, and I've never had an experience where I've had to remove somebody out of my life on a serious level like that. And it just taught me like the value of friendship, like this month especially. So I've made some notes about it because it really like made me appreciate the friendships that I do have,
Yeah.
with you guys, and how I really value low maintenance friendships. Like, you don't have to host me, you don't have to clean up, you don't have to do this and this and that. Like, we could just come back into each other's spaces and just like decompress. You know what I'm saying? It just has made me just very grateful for the friendships that I have, like the unit, my best friends, you, my best friend. Y'all would never do something like that.
Heck no. At all.
My God, like,
It wouldn't even be a thought. Like it wouldn't even be a thing.
right.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
But did you want to say something about the friendship before I move on
Being
to the next
broken
thing?
up with as a friend is crazy. Now, mind you, I done been toxic in a lot of relationships. I'm not proud of that. We're gonna talk about that in the future. However, being broken up with as a friend is crazy.
Yeah, I had to do it, man.
But at the same time, like I've also had to learn the hard way on boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the Rhapsody and Sanaa Lathan conversation because somebody had brought it back to my attention, and I said I would check it out.
Yeah.
And they talked about like in our culture, like we don't have boundaries. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a thing. And I think that like that's a really healthy boundary. Like you're setting the tone. Not and this is what I say about boundaries. Boundaries start with yourself.
Mm.
I think that's what a lot of people have misconstrued. They think that boundaries belong to whoever they want to give it to,
Mm.
but the boundary belongs to you.
Yeah.
And basically, what you're saying is, this is how I want to be valued as a friend because this is how I value people.
Yes.
So that's the boundary.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to be valued in this manner because this is how I value.
Right.
And you either gonna rock with it or you not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Thank you.
I know that was hard.
It was hard, and after this, I'll show you the details. But yeah, it was difficult. So, I've just made it a point also to like start hitting up my guy friends, because I realize like we get together like a lot when it's work related, So I've just trying to be intentional about like sending each of them text messages to check in, how you doing, different stuff like that. Just to let them know that I'm thinking about them, praying for them, wishing them all the best. And yeah, I'm just grateful for my friends. I really am.
Man.
I really am. And then last thing, I watched this show that Monica had been telling me to watch for years now.
One of them Korean Johns?
Yes, it's called 𝗶𝗀𝗄. It's an Apple TV show.
Okay.
It like was one of the biggest shows out like 2022. It was winning all the American awards and like
Okay.
it's huge. I haven't been moved by a piece of media like that in a long time. It was really,
What is it about?
really. It's about this girl. It's about like a family from Korea who during that time period where they were being colonized by Japan, and just telling the story about what the Koreans like went through at that time, like
Oh,
Japan,
wow.
and some of them were displaced and had to go over to Japan and like never was able to come back, all kinds of stuff. So it just was like basically telling that story. Um, but it was like some quotes in there that like was really hitting me like on a level. And I mean, I boohoo cried. Like I just really haven't been moved by PC media like that in a long time.
Okay.
So like I wrote some stuff down. So one of the guys said, if I allow my fears to shape me, I would no longer recognize my own outlines.
Wow.
Right? And it made me like stop and think about like how much like sometimes that I move or don't move out of fear. And myself is being erased because I'm letting fear dictate so much.
Yeah.
Um, so that was powerful. And then another one was more important than being successful is how you came by your success.
Facts.
And I was like, man, it just made me think like I want to come by my success in the right way. You know what I mean? So just being intentional and continuing down the path that we already are on.
Yeah.
Not trying to look for no quick ways to get it. You know what I mean? Enjoying the process. And yeah, that was it. So yeah, Pachinko, Monica, I know I took mad long to watch it. I watched it. It was great.
Word.
Thank you.
Shout out Monica.
Shout out Monica. Yeah.
Speaking of shows,
Mm-hmm.
House of the Dragons.
I didn't watch it.
I know you didn't, but come on, man. Like that season ended kind of wild, but if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. That season ended kind of wild. It's funny that we was talking about the jaws. we ain't even dap up like that. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of strong jaws on that.
Jaws on that show. Them young men.
It's a lot of strong jaws with the L on it, not jaws. Jaws. It's a lot. But
Word.
yeah. So it's
Mhm.
cool that you actually can say something positive.
Yeah.
Because I can't about the show that because I finally broke down and watched the show. I stopped watching it because of all of the incest. It was just too egregious. I'm like, I can't. It's too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Y'all taking it too far.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I finally got into it and I binge watched it and it just ended kind of silly. So
Dang.
yeah, man.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
That's it for your
Mm-hmm.
what's your life like?
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're in a good space. I'm glad that because I feel really good.
Me
So I'm
too.
glad that you can say that you feel good as well.
Me too.
And I know that like we've been working so hard at feeling good.
Yes.
And I'm just proud of you for standing up for yourself.
Thank you.
I think you and I, when it comes to boundaries, you and I are on opposite spectrums of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're setting the boundary and you're putting it out.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to respect boundaries that are being set.
Mm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody and I was just like, it just feels cold and distant between us. It doesn't have to be like this. I
Mm-hmm.
want it to be amicable.
Mm-hmm.
I want that.
Yeah.
And they were just like, I'm not being cold and distant. I just don't think that you're used to me setting boundaries. And I'm like, no, I think you're not used to me respecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And I really stand on that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't respect boundaries in the past because
Yeah.
I didn't have any boundaries myself. So
Right.
yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been it's definitely been a journey to get to this place that I'm at now. And I'm just glad that I have just rested, like you were saying, in gratefulness for so long. Even when I couldn't feel the happiness that I was longing for, I still found something to be grateful for.
Nice.
So now that I can actually feel happiness, it feels good.
That's good, man. That's beautiful. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, man. Cool. Well,
nice little break.
Needed break. Well, we're back. Kicking off
episode 6. I just wanted to say, before we start talking about this episode, we always put it at the end. I want to put it at the front.
Okay.
Follow us on Instagram. cool__IRL. If you're watching this video and you like our content, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to build up our platform. Please help us out with that.
Yes.
We have a book club. We read a new book every month. This month we're reading The Uncycled Self by 𝗀𝗶𝗸𝗲 Black Thought Trotter. So Black Thought from the Roots.
Word. I like that.
Yeah, man. Fire. Shout out Black Thought.
It's a fire cover.
I know. It's really dope. If y'all can see. Y'all can't see.
My foot out the way.
But y'all can see. Yeah, man. And that's it.
Word. Well, we are kicking off a series. This is Grief 101.
Yeah. We wanted to do a grief series because for this first year of us doing a podcast, one of the reasons why we decided to even do Cool in Real Life was to overcome grief.
Yes.
And we just figured like, yo, let's just do a grief series. Each step of the grief process, like not the grief, like different things, different types of grief. That way we can just release it.
Right. Releasing it is the key. We might get emotional, but just please understand that this is a release. We've both come a long way with grief.
Yeah.
And, we have a lot to share. And, at the end of it, I just pray that, someone can get something out of it. And if they don't, that's fine. At the end of the day, like, we've said our piece, we've made peace with things, and, we're moving on.
Facts.
Yeah.
So this is the first part of the grief series.
Yes.
Grief 101, loss of a loved one. Yeah. I know this is very challenging. I didn't even know how I was going to approach this episode. Honestly, I didn't even think about it. I think I kind of shut it out.
Right.
But we're here and we're here to talk about it. Some of you may know, some of you may not, a lot of you may not know. We have a lot of new people that follow us now.
Yeah.
But 2020 was very, very, very rough.
Very.
I lost my father in 2020. I lost one of my really good friends. And I lost one of my really good cousins. And those 3 passings happened in the same month. And also working in healthcare, I was surrounded by loss.
You are.
Like, just surrounded by loss. I was dating someone at the time who was also ineffectively grieving. They were going through loss. I took on an assignment in North Jersey to go work in North Jersey at the time. And I stayed with my cousin who was the mother of the cousin that passed. And that was her only child. So I had to experience that, like loss from like that perspective.
Yes.
And you were going through loss. And I remember you were like reaching out to me about it. Yeah, it was a heavy, heavy year. It was heavy.
It was very heavy.
Do you want to start this off or you want me to start it off?
You started off.
Okay. So 2020, I don't even remember. Like, it's such a blur to me. I don't even remember the month. Like, I think that grief is like this weird thing that, like, it forces you to go inward to a place that you didn't even know existed within you. And I don't even remember the date that I buried my father. Like, my mind won't even let me go there. Um I remember that time though. It surrounds work so much because the beginning of what I'm sorry, y'all. I have to like check in for a second and figure out when this all occurred. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all because it's crazy, and you'll understand why I blacked the hell out. June,
I was
because
gonna
I
say it was June.
I wanted to say July, but it kind of fell into July.
Mm.
But June, so June of 2020, June of 2020 was a crazy, crazy, crazy month, right? But let's fast forward. So my dad, he ended up having a hemorrhagic stroke. So basically he had a stroke that caused his brain to bleed. He had ineffectively managed his high blood pressure. I remember at the time I was starting my career in healthcare and I was telling my dad, like, you got to take better care of yourself. You know, he was having a lot of like smaller strokes and he ended up having a stroke that ended up having residual effects. So like he wasn't able to walk as well as he used to. Um, it left him down on one side. So like he wasn't as strong on one side. So basically with a stroke, let's say you have a stroke on the right side of your brain, it affects the left side of your body and vice versa. So wherever he was having this stroke, it affected the other side. So he just wasn't as strong and he aged a lot. Like, and just seeing him in that condition, I just felt really, really bad because I had moved away. I was living in Texas for like over 5 years. I hadn't seen my father and I never came back home. And I honestly don't know why, but I just did not come back home. And my dad, unfortunately, also didn't come to Texas to visit me. My mom did, but not my dad. And when I came back and I saw him, at first he looked good, but after he had that stroke, I was just like really concerned. And he was staying with one of my cousins at the time, and I was like telling her, I'm like, listen, like, you live a little bit too far. I can't ensure that my father is getting the care that he needs. Like, he needs to go to his checkups with his primary care provider. Like, he needs to take his medication. Like, can you just make sure that he's taking care of himself? Watch what you're eating. Lay up off that salt. You know what I mean? There's better ways to season your food. And it kind of was like my dad was just very stubborn. He was a very stubborn person. You couldn't really tell him anything. And to him, he felt like he was taking care of himself. I'm not. And a lot of people think that they're taking care of themselves and they're ineffectively taking care of themselves, right? So fast forward, he ended up having a stroke. He was told when he had the stroke that where he still was alive, like he was told that if you have another one, it's 9 times out of 10 gonna kill you. Oh. And they said, do you want this to happen to you? And he said no. And it ended up happening, right? So I remember I got the phone call. I don't even remember who called me. That's how blanked out I am. I don't even remember who called me. It might have been my brother. It might have been my mom. One of those two. And they told me that my dad had a stroke. Now, mind you, my dad done had like mad strokes, at least 5. Like
Wow.
They were actually very surprised that he was still standing because he was having strokes and wasn't going to the hospital.
What?
Refusing to go to the hospital.
Oh, geez, man.
I remember my dad had the stroke that left him down on the one side, and my brother had to trick him It was like, yeah, Pop, come on, let's go. We about to roll up. We about to ride out. Yeah, they rolled right on out to the damn hospital.
Good.
And my dad was mad.
Yeah.
But he had a stroke. So hearing it, it didn't even like process. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, is he okay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he done had about 5 or 6 strokes. So maybe not 5 or 6, maybe about 4. Because it's been going on for years. He's been having like little strokes, big stroke. If you have another one, you going, you know what I mean? And I remember they were like, they found your dad down. He wasn't responsive. And they think he had a stroke. And just working in healthcare, you know what that means. You know that you have like a 90-minute window to get to the hospital, to get the care that you need to potentially save your life. And who knows how long my dad was down for. And in that moment, I knew that my dad was gone. Like in that very moment, when I got that news, I knew that my dad was gone. And I think what made that whole time challenging was that I felt alone in knowing that information. Like, I had just started my career in healthcare, but I knew what I was talking about. And I remember my brother was my niece's mom is a nurse practitioner, and she was basically saying I didn't know what I was talking about my father.
I remember that.
And my brother listened to her. And so they rushed my dad to the hospital, of course. Like I said, you have a 90-minute window so that you can get the care that you need. But the time of like your last well-known is unknown, so you don't know. So then you can't really get that care, that, treatment. So the EMTs messed up. They had none of my dad's information. My dad was in the hospital as a John Doe.
Oh my
God. When we finally figured out what was going on, he was rushed to like a community hospital. So not a hospital that specializes in any type of real trauma. So they had to rush him from that hospital to another one. And they just weren't giving him the type of care that we wanted him to have. Like, we wanted him to have like a second opinion. And my niece's mom worked at like, I'm not going to say the hospital's name because I don't want to put that out there. But my niece's mom worked at one of the better hospitals in the tri-state area. And my dad was in New Jersey at the time, and we were trying to get him out of New Jersey to this area, to this better hospital. And they fought us on it, and they blocked us on it. And we ended up, we had to do all of the legwork ourselves. We had to find a accepting doctor, like a doctor who would take my father's case. Because basically what it means is that we can provide a different level of care. Like, we think that what we can do for them is different than what they're receiving. So we will accept the case. They blocked it.
Wow.
So we finally, I remember at the time, like they were talking primarily to my brother. My brother is older than me by like a year and a half, a couple years. So they were talking to him. And even though my brother knows nothing about what they were saying, I just remember at that time, and like, I don't have a good relationship with my brother. And everyone in my life knows that I do not have a good relationship with my brother, and it's been this way for years.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, two things for certain: when it's time of like a dire situation, we just kind of like get out of each other's way.
Right.
And I remember at that time, he needed to feel validated. He needed to feel like the go-to person. And I stood down, even though I knew what was going on. I know the jargon. I know the terminology. You don't know any of what's going on. You know what I mean? But you needed that, because I know that our father is gone, and you needed that. And I remember at the time, they wanted to put my father on comfort care, which is kind of like, they're going to pass, so we're just going to make him comfortable. And my brother just could not, like, He just couldn't process that. And primarily, it also had to do with my niece's mom telling him otherwise, right? He's going to get better. My uncle went through the same thing. He got better. And I'm like, no, no, this ain't that. So one thing that both of my parents instill in both of us is that we know their wishes. Prior to all of this happening, I knew what my dad wanted and I knew what he did not want. And I think that when it comes time for like life and death situations, we become extremely selfish and we think of ourselves because we're not ready to let people go.
Right.
But I'm just built different. And I've been this way since a child. Like, I'm just extremely spiritual. And it's just like, I'm extremely clairvoyant. And I realized that, like, I am the stronger one. You know what I mean? Like, I am the one that can make these, like these dire situations. I can make the call. And I was telling my brother, like, Dad doesn't want this. He doesn't want to be operated on. They wanted to put like a feeding tube in him. They wanted to do this. They wanted to do that. They put a trach in him. They did all types of stuff. You know what I mean? And if people don't know what that is, like a trach is you go through the neck so that people can breathe. A feeding tube is you go through the stomach. You know what I mean? Like, it's a surgical procedure, and my father did not want that. And another thing is my father did not want to be a vegetable. He didn't want to be in a vegetated state. You know what I mean? That was not life for him. And I remember at that time when I was like trying to relay that message, not only did my brother, but like my other family members like treated me as if I was trying to kill my father. And they said that, like, you're trying to kill him. And all I had at that time was my mom and my mentor. You know, I had a mentor who was actually a neurology ICU nurse. So she knew everything that was going on. And I remember they were trying to block me from calling the hospital so that I can see about my dad, like, so I can get updates. I was calling the hospital with my mentor who works in neurology. She's an ICU neurology nurse.
Yeah.
So we were getting really in-depth information and they were trying to block that. And I think at that time I didn't even process that. I don't think I've processed that yet.
I don't think so.
Because in that situation, you don't have time. You honestly just don't have time. You know what I mean? And my dad ended up getting all of the surgeries. They ended up doing all the things that my brother asked of them to do. And they were now ready to ship him out to like they call it an LTAC, but like it's like a rehab, where you go to get care. And my dad ended up succumbing to the stroke later on, but it was like a long drawn out process. It wasn't like anything comfortable whatsoever. And I remember it was like smack dead in the middle of lockdown. Like, we could not see our loved ones. You know what I mean? And the only way that I would have been able to see my dad in a hospital setting at that time is by putting him on comfort care, by saying to them, it's okay for you to do this. You know what I mean? But my thing is, it's not about me. And obviously it wasn't about what my dad wanted. It was about my brother in that moment. And I realized that, like, these things are for the living. It's very mundane. And maybe that's what my brother needed at the time to process. You know what I mean? So I went along with it. I didn't fight him on it. I didn't want to fight. I didn't have the energy to fight.
Right.
Even though I feel as though like what I was doing was the right call. So yeah, my brother, we had a chance to see my father. We both saw my father one time. He saw my father once and I saw my father once before he transitioned. And when he went into the room to see my father, all the things that I was saying, he saw. But he couldn't visualize it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there's grace in that. There has to be grace in that. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that I was being graceful at the time, but I realized now it was just grace.
Yeah.
Um, I have this saying where it's like your higher self has moments where it pops out. Your higher self kind of takes over because the mundane version of yourself just has no clue what it's doing.
Mhm.
And your higher self pops out and it takes control. And I think that was one of those moments um that higher me came out and
Mhm.
said, I'm going to I see what needs to be done for you on a emotional level, on a mundane level. This is what you need.
Yeah.
And yeah, my dad, he ended up passing away on Father's Day. Like literally on Father's Day of 2020, my dad passed away. But prior to that, while this is all going on, 2 weeks prior, one of my favorite cousins was murdered. And they still don't know who murdered my cousin. Um
It's okay.
I don't know, like my cousin was just a good person. He was extremely loved and liked by a lot of people. He was extremely talented. Um, so for somebody to do that to him, for someone to do that to anybody is like really foul. But for somebody to do that to him when he was like really like a lovable person, it just makes no sense. And I remember like coming home from work and his mom called me, which is also like she's like an aunt. My dad is nine of them, so like my dad and them are only 10 years apart. So she's my first cousin, but she's like an aunt, age wise,
Yeah.
right? And it was her son, and her son and I we were like the same age, and she told me, and I just like I just had no words. Like I just didn't I couldn't process it. And on Father's Day, coming home once again from work. I'm coming home from work and I'm getting told news, you know, after working like 13 hours. And like I remember learning about my dad. I was like a block away from my house. And I remember that night. That night was like sometimes like when you're working in healthcare, sometimes like all the like everything lines up in a row. Like I felt really confident that night. I was given like stellar care. Like I just had like a extra like something behind me pushing me. You know what I mean? And I remember it was around change of shift. I'm about to leave. I'm about to give the next oncoming person updates. And the doctor at the facility called me by accident because, like I said, I told them my brother, they knew that I was the one, but I said my brother is the go to person.
Mm.
So they called me by accident and I said, hey, I think you mean to call my brother. Lo and behold, they were calling my brother with the news that my
Mm.
father had passed away. And I remember that day. And since a kid, death has always been like really, really hard for me. Like even when I would have like pets that would pass away, or when I would see roadkill or anything, like
Mm.
I just really could not really handle death. I would be afraid of it. Like if I had a turtle that passed away or a fish, I would barely be able to scoop it out the damn tank
Mm.
to do away with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I remember I called my friend T and I was like, not T from last episode, y'all. That's a different T, but one of my close friends. I called TR and I was just like, I told her what happened and I said, I'm alone. I'm tired. I don't feel safe because the facility was like maybe like an hour outside of the city.
Mm.
I'm like, I need to see my dad. They told me my dad passed away. I need to see my dad. And she took me.
Mm.
She was there. And man, I remember kind of feeling numb on that ride and but still like maintaining. But when it came down to like, child, why my mom always calling in the middle of
Shout
something?
out Miss K.
Let me put my thing on do not disturb. I'm sorry. Um, when it came down to walking into the room, it's like my legs buckled. Excuse me. I just lost all of my energy. And she helped me up. And we walked in. And when I saw my dad, I've never cried like that in my life. And, it's one of those things where people who were working on that unit, they knew what was going on and they just allowed me to release. But it was like a soul curdling cry. Like my soul cried for my dad. But also, like I said before, that higher self poking out, I was also happy for my dad. My dad was depressed before he passed away. He had lost almost all of his siblings. He lost both of his parents. He lost a really dear friend to him. And he didn't want to be here anymore. And we would talk about it. And I would ask him, I'm like, Dad, like, are you doing this because you don't want to be here? You know? And he just would like stop and just look at me. And I knew that my dad was not happy. And I remember like looking at my father passing away on Father's Day as like the greatest gift that my father could have had. That was what he wanted. And I just climbed in the hospital bed and I just held him. Prior to him passing away, when I went to go see him, I washed him head to toe by myself. I washed my father. And I remember nobody knew that I worked in healthcare. I don't like telling people that I work in healthcare because I want to see how you're taking care of my loved one.
Yeah.
And one of the workers come in there like, "Oh, you're really good. You could work here. Which we need." You have no idea, shorty. You have no idea. But I washed my father from head to toe and washed his hands. I washed everything. You know what I mean? I took care of him, and that's all I knew to do. I didn't know what else I could do for him at that moment. I just wanted him to know that I was there. I wanted him to know that, you washed me when I was coming in, and while you're about to go out, I'm going to wash you. And it was just how I could show love. And we stayed, and I remember like that room, it was like a very calm, serene, like hue of blue in the room. And I had seen that before. I had seen that before in a dream when I had went to the other side. I had traveled somewhere, and after doing spiritual work, I realized where I was. And I had seen someone who had passed on. And it was that same serene blue. And I remember just thinking that like my dad is with God. And I can only cry but so much, because that's like the ultimate gift. Because not everyone transitions and get to be at peace. And my dad made sure to let me know that he was at peace. And like I said, like if you are clairvoyant, like it's one of those things where it's like at that point it can be seen as a curse if you don't know how to wield it, but it can also be seen as a blessing because you get to see like different signs and you know what it is. And I remember that day, it was a beautiful, like a breeze that would continue on to even the day that we buried him. It was that same warm, cool breeze. It wasn't like it was hot as hell out there when we buried my dad, and a cool breeze would just come through. And I know that my dad was really with me on the day that we buried him. I'll share my beliefs on that later, but Let's fast forward. Now we're making the plans of burying my dad. My brother did an amazing job. Like, my brother did an amazing job. He did right by my dad. He did right by our dad. You know what I mean? And I thank him for that. And I love him. I love him for that. And but prior to that, the morning that I'm getting ready to bury my dad, no, the day that I find out that my dad passes, my good friend Brandon hits me up. And he didn't want to bother me. It was Father's Day. He didn't want to bother me. He knew that my dad had passed on. And he said, I don't feel well. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what's wrong? Like, what's up? And he's like, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't feel well. And I know I'm afraid to go to the hospital. And he was telling me the symptoms. I asked him to tell me what the symptoms were. And I said, you probably have COVID. I said, you need to get tested just to see. And then we can go from there. But you need to at least test yourself so that we can see what it is. And he was like, all right, I'm gonna do that. He never did it, but he said that he would. And he was just like, I was just checking in on him. Hey, how you doing? Is everything? So my father passes away, but now I'm shifting gears because it's in the heat of COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're giving out like information to people that like younger people are not passing on from this, but that is not true, because I'm seeing it and everyone else that's working in healthcare is seeing it. And I'm telling my loved ones, like, yo, be careful. If you don't have to don't do that. You know what I mean? So when he says that, and like younger people who have ailments, you know what I mean, it was really attacking them bad. So he tells me he's not feeling well on Father's Day. No, the day after Father's Day. It was the day after Father's Day. He had a good Father's Day. He went out, he was celebrated. And he hit me up the day after, and I just remember him like being reluctant to hit me up because he knew what it was with my dad. And but he also knew that I worked in healthcare, and he was, concerned. Mm-hmm. And I talked to him every day, checked in on him every day. And one day was a little bit different. I was checking on him, and he said, I'm scared. And that sits with me, because I'm in Philly now. I'm not in Texas. I can't take care of my friend. But I have a bunch of friends that work in healthcare in Texas, and I'm like, you got to go to the hospital. You just got to go to the hospital. I remember we were all trying to learn what COVID was. Nobody knew what it was. And one thing that we were realizing in it is that people were walking around with low oxygen levels, but they were moving around like regular people. And we're like, how are you doing this? And then it would drop out of nowhere. They would just drop. And that was my concern. My concern was that you need more care than what you can give yourself at home. You need to go to the hospital. But a lot of people were going into the hospital, not coming out. And I don't blame him for being afraid to go there. I remember prior to that, I was trying to give him some remedies, like to try to like naturally doctor yourself. But that strain of COVID was vicious. It was really, really vicious. And I hadn't heard from him. And I remember like talking to, his partner at the time. And I was asking her for updates. And I was like, you have to take him to the hospital. And she was just like, okay, I will. He got tired. I said, no, take him to the hospital. You get tired when you lack oxygen. You get extremely tired. Please just take him. And I realize now that like, you can't save people when it's their time. I had to learn that throughout these years. because that really hit me hard, because I'm working in the midst of it, but I can't even save my loved ones. I can't even help in the way that I want to. Um and the things that I had suggested just didn't get done. You know what I mean? And I'm like, maybe I could have pushed harder, maybe I could have cussed them out, maybe I could have, but that wasn't our connection. Like, it was just, our connection was just loving, you know. We just accepted each other. It wasn't like somebody that I could be stern with. Like, that wasn't our connection. And I beat myself up for a long time because, like, and I beat him up for a long time because, like, I remember we did the podcast together and we had a COVID episode and we were telling people to protect themselves. And come to find out, he was cutting hair and he couldn't tolerate the mask and he took the mask down. And somebody sat in his chair with that shit. And they probably didn't know. A lot of people were walking around asymptomatic. They didn't know. Or they did know and they were just selfish. And I didn't understand it for a long time. I didn't want to accept it for a long time. And I remember, like, the night before I had, like, buried my dad, I was at my friend Aspen's house. And she, shout out to her, like, she was such a good friend in the midst of all of that. We used to go for walks and she would talk to me, and, you know, I had a safe space to release and vent. And I remember telling her, like, yo, something not right. Like, Brandon not hitting back like he normally does. Like, something not right. And yeah, I got ready the next day to, or maybe the next day or maybe a day after that, to get ready for my father's funeral. Excuse me, hold on. We need tissues, child. Oh, let me get a little square. Look, we ain't got tissues in this crib, but we gonna use this soft toilet paper. Yeah, I'm getting ready for my father's funeral, and his partner called me. She called me and she told me the news that Brandon had passed. Man, that took the life out of me. That hurt me so bad. Like, how do you even accept that?
Yeah.
That was the last thing I was expecting to hear. I thought that she was calling to tell me that he had been admitted to the hospital. Not that he passed. He passed at home with his daughter. She was 12 at the time. You know what I mean? Like, and my buddy never got tested for COVID, but they tested him later to see if he had it, and he did. And I remember going to my father's funeral, like, just empty. I was just so broken. And a part of me felt bad because I felt like I was crying for my dad, but I cried for Brandon more.
Yeah.
Because I knew that my dad was ready. But I knew that Brandon had so much life and he has so many goals and aspirations and just things that he wanted to do and things that he was working towards. He was about to finish school. He was about to start his clothing line, all the things. He was about to have a fashion show. Like, all the things that he wanted to do, he was about to embark on, and he worked so hard to get there. And it's such a pity that, like, you work so hard in your life and you don't even get to reap the benefits of it. I think that's what hurt me the most, that he wasn't able to be on the other side of his hard work. And that broke me. But I didn't have time to really feel. I did feel that day, and that was the last day that I felt numb after that. I felt extremely numb. That day, I thank my father. He sent that crazy gust of wind to lift me up. And it's something when you see that casket drop. It's something. But I'm so thankful for my parents, because my parents raised my brother and I on, I'm not in that ground. That is not me. They raised us on that since kids. And I had to stand on that. I visited the gravesite one time after that. And then I realized I was going against my better judgment. My dad is not there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is not my dad. My dad is not even my dad anymore. My dad is so much bigger than that. You know what I'm saying? He has transcended from this life and he is now just a spiritual entity. It's not William anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I remember after that, I was just trying to do all things to release, to sleep. I was smoking, y'all. I was smoking. I ain't gonna hold you. I was smoking. I couldn't do that because I became even more clairvoyant and then I started to feel stuff. And Brandon came to me. He came to me in my apartment and what he brought was sorrow. See, Brandon was a very thoughtful person. He never wanted to be in the way. He was like such a cool dude. Like, he never wanted to be a burden. I know for a fact that he was sad about the way he passed. Like, I think people have this misconception about death. They think that people don't feel after they leave their bodies. They think that people aren't conscious of what's going on. They think that people are not cognizant. They're still very much so attached to their life still that they're just now leaving. And there's a lot of guidance that takes place for them to transcend that life that they just left behind. You know what I mean? And just with him knowing that, like, I found out about that on the day that I had to bury my dad, I know that he, like, was sad by that.
Yeah.
But that level of sorrow is like, I think people don't understand, like, what the body is. The body is a buffer. We contain our emotions. Unless you're like a person that can really, really feel, you contain those emotions. But when you're not in a body anymore, you're not containing those emotions. And it's so vast and they're so deep and they're so much, they're very felt. And I couldn't withstand it. It was too heavy. I instantly knew the difference between, like, my father's energy, Brandon's energy, my cousin's energy. And I'm gonna let you talk and I'll talk about how my cousin came to me a few times. You know what I mean? But I had to tell him to not come until you transcend from that, because I can't withstand that sorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy when my dad comes. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Pop. He be coming in weird ways, child. He be coming through in weird ways. But shout out him, man. But yeah, I remember at that time, despite me going through all the things I was going through, you had hit me up because of what you were going through. And I tried to give love in the best way that I could. I tried to give support in the best way that I could. And I'm gonna just let you talk about that.
Yeah. Before I go into detail about me, just want to say, like, I remember that whole time frame. That June. I remember it, like, very vividly. And it's 3 cries that sometimes, like, would, like, replay in my head. It was my grandma, because I never heard her cry before. She only cried one time in front of me. And the Greens aren't emotional people. You know what I'm saying?
Older Black people, period.
They just, they really are different. Like, my grandma, I know I told you before, but, like, she was judging me for crying at a funeral once. It's my fault because I gave her that crown royal before we went. So she was a little, she was a little turnt. But I'm in that joint wiping tears, and she sat up like, Like, really look. I'm like, Grandma, if you don't.
That's crazy.
And so to have a woman like that bust out crying, I remember where we were. We were in her kitchen. She was looking out the window. My pop was sitting out there. He was suffering from COPD. He was deteriorating. And I remember her saying, like, I've tried calling his sister. She's like, I don't know what to do. And she bust out crying. And it was so weird to sound like I didn't even know she was crying at first. I was just looking at her, didn't register that she was crying. So that replays sometimes. It was my dad when she was in the hospital and he came home. Another person I've never heard cry before. This is a man who I asked would he cry at my wedding. He was like, hell no. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
He was like, hell no. And I remember him crying, calling me, and I heard this wail on the other end, and I didn't even know what it was at first. And I was like, oh, he's crying because he had just left the hospital. And the third one was you. And I remember talking to you the night that you talked to Brandon. And he told you, I'm scared. I remember you hitting me up and you telling me like, yo, I've been trying to tell them to go to the hospital. They not going. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was the next day. But I feel like it was the next day because I remember being at work upstairs at the desk and you called me and I knew it was your father's funeral.
I'm sorry.
You good.
Sorry.
And you called me and he was like, Brandon died. And I just thought it was so unfair because I knew, everything that you were going through. I remember when your father passed and, me just trying to talk to you and everything. And I just talked to you the night before. And those words, I'm scared, kept replaying like in my head. And I felt so bad for him and for you. I just thought that it was so unfair for you to have to find that out on an already hard day. And I remember that cry. And I just had to sit there and listen because what could I say? You know what I'm saying? Nothing. So I just admire like the strength that you had. I really don't know how you got through that time. It just was so much back to back to back.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2020 was it was just trash. Like,
yeah, 2020 was hard.
It was very hard. And I remember everything plays in like a series of steps. Like I worked on that short film in August. We had to get a COVID test. And that's what made me comfortable enough to like go see my grandma. And I didn't know that that was the last time that I was going to see her, but I'm grateful for it. And I remember her asking like, when you gonna come back? And I was like, I'll be back maybe in November. I'll try to come back for my birthday. And she was like, I can't wait that long. Oh. And I was like, I'll try to come see you next month. But I didn't, like work and stuff kind of like got in the way. And I wasn't really calling that much just because talking to her was hard.
Why?
Because she was sad. She was processing things that was going on with my grandfather, and I didn't really know how to help her.
Yeah.
A part of it did feel like negative. Like the things that she was saying was so negative, and I didn't want to hear that. Like, I don't want to hear all of these bad things about, my pop. I know he's not doing well. He talked to me before he really, really got bad sick, and he was like, my heart is light. So I knew that when it was his time, he was ready. Like, he would be ready to go. So it just didn't, I just wasn't, calling as much. It was just hard for me to listen to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why I was dealing with a lot of guilt, is because like that was probably one of the only outlets she might have had, was talking to me. And I don't know why, like they always felt comfortable, maybe because I didn't live there.
Yeah.
But they felt comfortable telling me things that they weren't telling, the other family members, and I would just hold on to it. But that was weighing me down, and I didn't know how to deal with it. But I wish that I would have like continued to give her that outlet, even though it was hard for me. So,
But why? Like, I know that hindsight is always 2020, right?
mhm.
And I know that like we try to process things like, what could I have done differently? But that's not how life is. What
Yeah,
you did is what you did, and you set a healthy boundary for yourself, and you honestly don't know when a person's time is coming.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But at the same time, what you did know at that time is that it was weighing you down. It was weighing you down.
hmm
And go ahead.
yeah. So, I my birthday is always like either on or around Thanksgiving. Like every 4 years, it's on Thanksgiving. So, as an adult, like my mom always made sure like that I was celebrated as a kid. But as I've gotten older, I don't really like put too much emphasis on my birthday and stuff. So this year, I did for the first time
In 2020?
in 2020. Planned a trip to Mexico with me and some loved ones. And I didn't tell her because I was like, she gonna cuss me out. She knows, like, because we're in a time of like OG COVID, and it had kind of like slowed down at that time. But then you remember it got that like second surge.
Yeah.
So I was in the in between time. So I kept it on the low. Um, their anniversary came. Everything is in November. I would always call them on their anniversary. Their anniversary came. I didn't say no. I was like, oh, I'll call them later. My birthday came. I was like, I'll call them later. Her birthday is 6 days after mine. So, I'm in Mexico at the time, and I called just to wish her a happy birthday. And I remember my aunt was like, Grandma's not here. I was like, where's she at? And that's when I found out like she was in the hospital.
Mm.
And my dad, both of them had COVID, and she also had pneumonia. And it was just a wrap like after that. Um and I never got to talk to her again. But I've worked through things with that. That's really why I know it's bad. Like I don't really like celebrate my birthday for real. So I just don't care. Like, after that happened. But I just it was just a hard time, And
Yeah.
I just have to, thank you, because I was calling up there. Nobody was really telling me what was going on. They didn't put my name like on any list and things like that for me to get any information and whatnot. And I remember the one night they were trying to, kind of give us the runaround, and you like spoke on our behalf. And I remember like it was a nurse who was trying to say basically she was too busy to check in or like whatever. I don't know what the terminology was, but you asked her how many such and such you got. And she said it, and he was like, that's not nothing. You could go in there and do what you need to do. And you like really, really advocated for us and got us answers that we probably wouldn't have never got if it wasn't for you.
Wow.
And I remember
It's okay.
I remember, the lady saying her lungs are completely white, and I'm sorry, but she's not gonna make it. And yeah,
Yeah.
and she did it. And I struggle with that too, because I'm in Virginia. Like, do I go up there? Are they gonna let me in to see her? And I ended up not going, just because like they were saying like Jersey was a hot spot at the time, just all of these things.
Yeah.
And I think it was the fact that like she asked for me and I wasn't there is what bothered me like for a long time, because everybody else was there, and just not me. So I really struggled with that, but I was working with the best information that I had at the time, like
Yeah.
I did the best that I could with the information I had at the time. So we ended up burying her on what used to be my wedding anniversary. It was just a trash time.
Yeah.
It was just a trash time. Like that, we had a date. They moved the burial date. Nobody, like, I didn't know. It was a trash time. And then that next month, my cousin also passed away from COVID. And so, I'm there. That was hard. I'm trying to talk to my grandfather. We're just at the time. And he's crying. I never saw him cry before. He's crying because they've been together since they were teenagers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he told me, he was like, after I get everything straight, I don't want to be here anymore. He's like, I don't have any quality of life. So this is again more information that I can't go and tell anybody. That I can't tell his children, your father don't want to be here no more. You know what I'm saying? It's already hard. You just lost your mom.
Right.
So I just like, held on to that, and I didn't feel comfortable like going around them. So that's why, I made the decision to, to get vaccinated, just for me, because I couldn't talk to him no more. The last time I talked to him on the phone, it was 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's all he could do, because he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I can't talk to him, I'm going to just go physically be with him. Just sit there and hold his hand and watch the ID channel. We don't have to talk. And right after, you had to wait that 2 weeks or something after the second vaccination. And right around that time when it was be okay for me to go is when he passed. But like my friend passed away.
Yeah.
And I was in New Orleans with the unit. And I remember that last night, like I didn't want to go to like the next, like wherever they wanted to go. I was like, I really just want to go back. I got to prepare because I got to bury my friend the next day. And with her, it was just like at the time, and I know it sounds crazy, but when people would ask me, how are you doing? It would kind of like send me into like a little spiral, because I didn't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do you really want to know how
Right.
I'm feeling? Because
Right.
I'm not doing good.
I'm not doing good at all.
And then it would also like force me to think about how I'm feeling, because I tried to like stay up here with it because everything just was so heavy. And with her, I remember she sent me an IM at work, and she was like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I miss you. And I totally like disregarded the like miss you part. I just focused on the how are you doing part. And I didn't, I got wrapped up in the what do I say back, that I didn't say anything. And so I never got to speak to her again either. And I flew back into town and went straight to her funeral. And then the next day is when I found out my grandfather passed. And I think
it's crazy
that like my brain like was like, you can't handle this. So we just pretend like it's not happening. So I just didn't even think about it like too heavy, like for a long time. Cause I couldn't take it, bruh. It just was Like 4 people in 7 months is crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I never dealt with like close grief like that before. So it was hard, but during that time, it was something that you said to me, I'm gonna read it. That I used to like look back on almost all the time to
Wow.
like help me, cuz nothing really was helping.
Yeah.
But like reading this like would just make me feel a little bit okay.
Wow.
So you said death is nothing more than a limitless transformation. Your grandmother is no longer bound to the rules of this dimension. She can flow freely. She's gained true enlightenment and knows your exact heart and exact emotions. She knows all. She's still here, still protecting, still loving, still strong. I'm praying for your family. I'm praying for you. I told you the other day to hold your head up high. Your grandmother would want it no other way. And don't sit in regret. You did what you felt was best. You did what was right. You chose safety first, and she appreciates that more than you think. She understands that more than you think. Also, the vibrancy that exudes off of her in these photos isn't even a fraction of how vibrant she is now. Find peace, friend. Lean on your loved ones. Don't go at this alone. You have a tribe that truly cares. Safe travels to your grandmother. So thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for operating in your higher self, because I know it was hard. I feel like you've gone through exact things that I've gone through before me to help me. And also, I don't think that that's very fair on you, for you. I think, like, is there no other way for me to like learn these lessons or realize these things without you having to go through them first? But thank you for handling everything with grace and being obedient and just being there for me.
You're welcome.
I know it's hard. I know it was hard. I know it was hard.
It wasn't hard to be there for you.
No, just going through like everything. That's a lot, man.
Yeah, it is a lot. I think there were like nuances of loss. You know, I think just dating somebody at that time, them being the only person that I knew to call because they were closer and they were there with me when I first found out about my dad, and the very next day they decided not to deal with me anymore. And I just felt like that was so cruel at the time. I just felt like it was like the timing, it was just so cruel. And I thought about it the other day, and I thank her. There's no perfect time to transition in life, out of life. There's just no perfect time beyond the time that you choose, right? Or the time that's chosen for you. And helping you and helping other people helped me. I would be remiss to say that I'm clairvoyant and I know these things and not share them. I think that would be an extreme betrayal to myself and to the people that I love. It was extremely easy being there for you. I knew that you needed to hear that, and I didn't send it just because I allow God to flow. Those words are not mine. I don't take any ownership of those words, but I'm extremely thankful that I was obedient enough to be used as a vessel to give you those words. And I think that this is just a indicator that we just have to be obedient, and we have to be open to be used as vessels.
Yeah.
Because you just never know what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be showing up for a person. And I was also like tapping more into spirituality at that time. I had like completely shut that off in my life, because growing up as a child, I didn't have anybody to help guide me through that, and it was very scary, seeing stuff and feeling stuff and witnessing stuff, and you don't have anyone to tell you what's up. And I had to learn about my dad. I had to learn about Brandon. I had to learn about my cousin. And I started having encounters.
Yeah.
And Miss Loretta was like super strong. OG was strong.
Man, that's why I just knew she was coming home.
Yeah. But when it's your time, and there's nothing that can change it.
Yeah.
And it's not a mistake.
Right.
It
took me a very long time to rest in that, because it's just the series of events that happened. Like, I was like, if one thing would have been different, it could have been different. Like, the one hospital she didn't want to go to was the one that you worked at. And at the time you were on the COVID unit.
Yeah.
So I was like, if she would have just went there, if somebody would have just told me the care that she got that caused her to get out the bed and then fall would have never happened. Like, I couldn't get past that. So it took me a while to understand, like, when it's your time, it's your time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just they romanticize that era. I feel like it's like a blur for a lot of people. I think a lot of people who didn't necessarily deal with like grave loss and didn't have to work in the midst of it, they just focus on the lockdown and how life changed for them, as far as like going out and about in just everyday life.
Right.
Excuse me, but I don't think people realize, like, healthcare professionals are people, and they were scared.
Yeah.
I mean, frightened, terrified. I can say I wasn't scared not one time. And that's God. Like, I rose to the occasion. I answered the call, 1000%. But they were scared. I remember at that point in time, nurses were the only ones going in the rooms. Nurse assistants didn't go in the rooms. Dietary workers didn't go in the rooms. Housekeepers didn't go in the rooms. Doctors did not go in the rooms.
Wow.
Social workers didn't go in the rooms. No one went in the rooms but the nurse. How would y'all know that?
Right.
The damn doctor is talking to the person through the damn door. Asking them how they doing. Go in there and find out. A lot of healthcare professionals got sick and passed because they weren't properly protecting themselves. I've seen several healthcare professionals go in those rooms with no mask. A lot of young doctors passed.
Yeah.
Housekeepers passed. A lot of people passed. And that's the stuff that, like, no one talks about, right? Like, everyone wants to say, you're our heroes. You don't know how much staff died.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know how many people came in and realized that they had to take care of a person with COVID and left. Like, walked out. Everybody wasn't a hero. You understand? Everybody wasn't a hero. Like, there were a lot of that. Oh, I take care of somebody that's immunocompromised. I can't do it. There was a lot of that. And granted, there were a lot of people that did have immunocompromised loved ones.
Yeah.
And they couldn't. You had a lot of staff that were older. And it was just a lot of camaraderie also at that time. Nah, we're not going to send you in that room. You 60 something years old. You 50 something years old. I'm 20 something years old. I'm 30 something. I'm going to go in there. It was a lot of people who answered the call, but there were a lot of people that didn't. And when you were telling me about your grandmom falling, people just did not want to go in those rooms. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of people died alone. You know? And I remember realizing that. And I had a couple. I had two patients that I was taking care of at the time. They were a husband and wife, and they were older. They had to be like maybe in their 70s. And they were quarantining, and they were doing their things, and their younger family members brought it to them. Because we're the ones that's out and about, you know what I mean? And like I said, a lot of people didn't know. A lot of people were walking around asymptomatic. They just didn't know. And unfortunately, they both caught it. And at first, you know, they were okay. Not okay, but like it wasn't too far gone. And the husband just ended up getting far worse than the wife. It's an older Black couple. And I remember he got upgraded to the ICU. And she hadn't seen him. In the same hospital, had not seen him, hadn't heard from him. The family members were trying to like set up like conferences. Like at that time, people could only really talk to their loved ones through like iPhones and stuff like that, like through FaceTime or like video chat. And she wanted to see her husband. And I remember I came on that night and I was just like, I'm going to take you to see your husband. Was I supposed to do it? No. But I did that shit and I don't care. I said, you got enough strength to get in a wheelchair? She was like, yeah. I said, all right, I'm going to take you up to the ICU myself. And I wheeled her all the way up there. She had her mask on. I had my mask on. We were protected. I called up to the ICU. I told the nurse that was taking care of her husband what my plan was. I said that he's going to pass and she has not seen him and she deserves to see him because the ICU is like encased with glass. Like you can see in the rooms from outside the room. The whole unit is pretty much encased in glass. And I took her up there and I remember her like sitting outside the room. Like we were both sitting in front of the glass door. And she was like, baby, get up. Like, she was just like, please, like, just be strong. Like, you made it through the Vietnam War. You came back to me. You could come back to me again. It ain't the same, you know, like it took a lot of people out. Took a lot of older people out. Especially people with ailments. And I'm just glad that I could be with her in that moment. I'm glad that I could give that to her.
Yeah.
Once again, just being used as a vessel. A lot of times you're busy, you're working over 12 plus hours. You have a lot of other people to take care of. But that's caring for people. You know, that's what empathy is.
Yeah.
That's what grace is. And I'm just glad that I was there and I was willing and able to do that. So it was a lot of loss.
It was very, very, very heavy time.
Yeah.
But I'm just like family, of course, you know, my mom, my sisters, but you know, friendship really, really got me through. And I'm, you know, glad that I was able to start this episode off, you know, being thankful for friendship and then just thinking about that time and how my friends were really there for me, like the unit showing up, like, you know, I'm in my grandma's house. Who that coming down the driveway? I don't know. And they walking through the door. You know what I'm saying? Like just being there for me in that moment, like having friends like you, friends like Monica who like, how are you today? I'm okay. And she was okay with letting me be okay. Like so many people sometimes would be like, well, how can we get you great? How can we make you better? It's like, I'm just okay today.
Yeah.
I just needed friends to just let me be okay. You know what I'm saying? She's a friend who just let me be okay. And if it wasn't for y'all and my family, like, you know, I don't know, man.
Yeah, man. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people, you know, dealt with loss at that time.
Yeah.
You know, I saw you were talking about grace and stuff like that. We took the break off of after What's Your Life Like, and I peeked over and I saw a ladybug crawling on the window. And I instantly knew that was like a loved one.
Yeah.
But it comes with a message also. I gotta try to find it now. So I want to tell you what they're saying that the ladybug symbolizes. Ladybugs are agile and quick, representing the importance of being nimble and responsive in the face of life's changes and challenges. Their presence serves as a gentle reminder to find joy in simplicity, to adapt with grace, and to celebrate the small wonders that surround us daily.
Wow.
You were just talking about that on What's Your Life Like, and a loved one sent us a ladybug. Yeah. It's moments like that that just make me feel like, because can we start talking about like the encounters now? I want to get all right. I'm so glad that we worked through like the sadness, and now we about to get to this talk.
Yeah.
Child, my dad. He be coming through. All right, let me say this. I was talking to a previous partner, like at the time we were at my apartment, and I was talking about my cousin. That was the first loss, right? That was loss number one. And I was telling her how the city of Paterson, New Jersey, which is where a lot of my family members live, they viewed him as like the Nipsey Hussle of like Paterson. That's how, like, you remember when Nipsey passed? Like, that's how it was when my cousin Wameen passed. And it hurt a lot. It hurt the city. It was bad. And I remember saying that to her, like I was just speaking on his significance and how much people cared about him. And the way that my apartment was set up is like the living room was in the front. It was like a row home, like a Philly row home.
Yeah.
But like my living room was in the front. My bedroom was all the way in the back of the apartment, and we were in the room talking. My phone was all the way in the living room, and Nipsey Hussle starts playing out of nowhere.
Wow.
That was around the time when things were coming to the apartment, child. Like, I just kept getting visits. And to kind of talk about that, I'm gonna talk about like a scary moment real quick.
Yes,
because I feel like I would be like, it would be wrong for me to leave this out. But I was staying with my cousin on an assignment. I was working at a hospital in North Jersey at the time, and I remember like at first it was like, number one, that hospital was really, really hard to work at, and I cried. It was the first time that like I had cried like before going into work. That's how hard it was and how draining it was and how much loss was there, right? So, but outside of that, my cousin's house was very dark. And I remember like, this is like starting my spiritual journey over again. I remember I hadn't felt this way since a child. And I remember telling you and other friends like the feeling, and I had to kind of give you guys an analogy, like, and I talked about the movie It. And I talked about how it terrorized kids. It terrorized this group of kids, and they were able to knock his head off and send him back to the depths from which he came. But then they knew that he would come back, and they rallied up again as adults. And those same fears that they had as kids came rushing back as adults. And that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. It was terrorizing. And I remember like there was something in that house, and it was dark, and it was insidious, and it was evil. And I remember it was in the it was in the basement.
In that daggone basement, yes.
And I know like people hate attics and basements. They suck. I hate them. Me too. Why? Why are they so creepy? They creepy for a reason. Be things in there.
Oh no, don't say that, child.
Sometimes not, but there was something in this basement, and my little cousin stayed down there. And shout out my little cousin. That Negro still owe me $20 from that time. I'm gonna let him live. But I remember I was down there washing my clothes for work, and I had to muster up all the strength to go down there. And I was like, I'm a light. I'm a beam of light in a sea of darkness, but I'm light and I'm protected. Nothing can touch me. I'm light. And I felt like, what's that show with the upside down?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
You know, like when she goes into that black state and she's there, but she's surrounded by dark. That's what it felt like.
Upside down.
Nah, that wasn't the upside down. It was kind of like the upside down, but it was like when they're putting her in the water.
You mean 11?
11.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I was in like when it was all black and she was standing in water. That's what it felt like.
Okay.
Minus the water. But I remember, like I was just talking it down, like you're courageous, you're light, you're protected by God. God got you. Just all the things that I needed to get down in this basement.
Yeah.
And now it was time for me to go back into the basement to, I think, put my clothes into the dryer or something like that. And whatever was in that basement wanted me. And it tried to get me. And it made crazy noises through the pipes. And it was ferocious. And I ran. And I did not feel that way since a child. And I realized that that type of terror is what closed me off spiritually. It closed me off from being clairvoyant because I used to see things as a kid. And I was always petrified. I wasn't terrified. I was petrified as a kid.
Yeah.
I cried a lot as a kid. I hated the dark, and I didn't have parents that really understood. My mom understands now, but I used to get punished. I used to sleep. I used to hate it so much that I used to courageously venture through the dark in a pitch black house, a 3-story house, one of them old school Pennsylvania houses, like haunted, straight haunted. And I used to, my little baby self used to venture through the dark to go to the 3rd floor, which is kind of like an attic, and sleep next to my brother on the floor. Like I used to sleep next to his bed. That's how petrified I used to be. Yeah. Every night I would do this. Shout out the cats that we had, man. Shout out Fluffy. The cats used to come, and cats are very protective against spirits. If people don't know, if you hate cats, you need to really reevaluate, because cats are very protective against negative energy and spirits. And the cats used to sleep with me all the time. The cats didn't sleep with anybody else. Them cats used to sleep with me though. Going to my cousin's house, it brought back all of that. And I still don't know what that entity was in there. It could have been rage. It could have been a murderous spirit. It could have been something dark was there though. And it wasn't my cousin. Yeah. Because my cousin would be like kind of outside the house, kind of like. And I realized after doing like Reiki and stuff like that, I realized that like I was sent there. And I stayed the time. I was sent there to, I'm not going to go into detail on that, but right. I was sent there to help him and to help my cousin on a more spiritual level, not on a mundane level at all. But like, yeah, man, that was extremely terrifying. I remember I told you, and instantly like you got scared, like you were scared. You was like, yo,
don't go down there no more.
I went. I think I told my cousin like I can't go in that basement alone. Like you got to come with me. That's how it was.
Yeah.
Like it was that. I can't go down there by myself. You have to come with me.
Yeah.
And once that assignment was done, I did not look back. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back. I can't go back to that house. I can't. I'm afraid of it. Shout out my cousin though, cause she was like, I don't feel nothing. Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know. But it's I tried to tell it's something there. But let's move past that even. the haunting side of it. There's a very beautiful side of it too. Of like when your loved ones transition. And I think that a lot of times we just think of like we think of the loss. I lost my dad. I lost my friend. Nah, like you really gained so much more. It's just that we're not spiritually tapping in and we're not allowing them to come to us. I remember there was a time when you used to be like, I used to tell you like, sleep, especially now that your grandmother just transitioned, like sleep and allow her to come through. And you were so closed off at that time. You were like, I don't know if I can handle that. And you were honest though. But I couldn't sleep. My dad couldn't come through. My loved ones couldn't come through because I was not sleeping. You know what I mean? And now, child, the way my dad come through electronics.
Yeah.
I was in this house by myself, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which is a prime time.
Yes.
A portal time. I'm in bed. I'm about to close my eyes. You know the layout of this condo.
Yeah.
I'm in the room with the door shut. My Bluetooth speaker in this living room randomly turns on. And I was just like, at first I'm like, because I'm also kind of like in between sleep. So I'm like, what is that? Like, who the hell is blasting music? It was like a weekday. I'm like, who is blasting music this loud? Like, who is that? Outside blasting music. I live in the hood, y'all. But I'm like, nobody's blasting this type of, it was creepy music. Who the hell is blasting this? It was the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme slowed down.
What?
Slowed down.
Nah, that's nuts.
It was creepy.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear that at first. I'm like, who's I just heard sound. Then I'm thinking like, who in the building is blasting music? Because now I'm thinking it's closer than outside. So who is in the building blasting music? And then I listen closer. I'm like, that's in my condo. Oh God. That's in my condo. And I'm alone.
Now I be getting scared again. Like I didn't hear this before.
Everybody's asleep. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I called a friend that I knew would be up. And I told them, I'm like, yo, I need you just to stay on the phone with me. I was scared. It was like, you good? Like, what's like, yo, you okay? And I was like, I don't know, but I need you to just stay on the phone just in case something goes down. There's a witness to it. Somebody might be in my condo. And then, like I said, the higher self always pops out sometimes. We might need to turn the lights on. It's getting dark in this joint.
It is.
Dang. Turn the lights on. Let's turn the lights on. Sorry, y'all. This is a blooper like a mug, but we gonna let it rock. It got dark in this joint. Not you running over there. That camera gone.
It is.
But then I listen. Like I said, the higher self always pops out. And then I'm listening and I'm like, that ain't like a human. It's not a living person. It's a spirit in the crib. And then I have to evaluate. And I have to go like really evaluate. And I'm like, okay, it's a loved one. So then I open up the door and I go and I turn it off. I'm no longer afraid because now I'm able to like tap in to that level. And my cousin, my older cousin, my mom's first cousin, so you could tell they older.
Yeah.
They had just transitioned. But I didn't really have a connection with my cousin Daryl like that. And I'm like, but I know that it's one thing, like spirit is gonna move wherever they know that they can move to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was telling you about your grandma. I'm like, they know so much more than us. Um, so much is unlocked for them. And like, but I just knew innately that it wasn't my cousin Daryl. Cause my mom was like, it's probably cousin Daryl. And I was like, nah, it was my dad. Like, it was dad.
Yeah.
And then I got confirmation it was dad. And I'm
Mhm.
like, come on, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing like,
Yeah.
come on. You know damn well that's creepy.
Like, why that song? Slowed?
Cause and I'll say this, when your loved ones come to you like that, they exude so much energy. It's actually very hard for them to come to you like that,
Mm-hmm.
to like come through electronics. But like a lot of times that's how they come through. They come through like dreams, sense of smell. Like if you smell something that reminds you of that person is near, they'll come through animals, like different ways, and electronics, man. And sometimes so strong that they'll burn your electronic out. Like you got, um and then he did it again, I want to say like a few weeks ago, like a couple weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago, through another Bluetooth device that's nowhere near me.
Mm.
My magic mouse was all the way in my room, in one of the side tables next to my bed,
Yeah.
and it was tucked away, and it turned on out of nowhere. And I cried, and I said, "Hey dad, you know what I mean? Like, what's up?
Yeah.
I love you. I'm thinking of you always. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for your protection. Thank you for, just being there." He came to me when I was at that house, at my cousin's house, through dream, and he told me about Psalms. And then once I started to go down like a more deeper spiritual journey, just learning what Psalms are, I'm just so thankful for that.
Yeah.
And then he came to me again through a dream. And this time, this dream was so cool. We actually traveled, and we went to a different realm. Went to do the two different realms. I don't know. Did I tell you this story? Yeah, we went to two different realms. Um, it's like we were in like this. If I had to, one thing, let me just give a disclaimer. When you leave out of here, out of this dimension, and you go elsewhere, you can't really describe it. There's really no words for it here. It's more of a knowing, like a telepathic knowing, or like there, it doesn't exist here. It just doesn't exist here. The colors don't exist. The scenery doesn't exist. The landscape, it just doesn't exist here. So in order to try to like bring down like what I've experienced and try to make people understand, I have to like give you guys examples. So it looked like Dune,
Mm.
but beautiful. And not like Dune, because the sand wasn't a brown. It was like a white sand. The sky wasn't night or day.
Mm.
There was like moons that you just can't even imagine, like a moon that's like so close you feel like you could touch it,
Mm.
and just radiating so much energy off of it. And like we went into this area, and it was like a stopping point, like a point before you go elsewhere. And my dad was talking to, and I call them my dad, but they're not my dad. They've transcended that. But my dad, just for sake of conversation, my dad was speaking to a man who was like a protector of a portal, like a protector of like, in order to jump, we have to discuss, like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But it wasn't like anything weird. It was just a very beautiful transaction. And we continued on our journey, and we went to a party, and it was a sea of people, all different types of people,
Mm.
all different ages. But one thing's for sure, two things for certain. Nobody was standing up on no wall. Nobody was too afraid to two-step.
Yeah.
Nobody was too afraid to celebrate. And I don't know why they were all dancing, but it was fun. And it was love. And it was warm. And there was no judgment there. And there was just like, people were just coexisting peacefully.
Yeah.
And everyone was just having a good time. And my dad was young. He was a young laddie. Looking fly. Facts.
I love it.
And then I came back. He brought me back. And I prayed for that though. I asked God to restore my abilities. I asked God to allow me to have my visions again. As a child, I used to do a lot through dreams. I used to be able to wield my dreams. I asked God to be able to give that back to me. And slowly but surely, they're coming back.
Yeah. Word. That's what's up. Yeah, man. I've had like a few dreams. I think the first one I had like wasn't the greatest, and that's why I didn't want to anymore.
Yeah.
Because dang, I was doing so good. But I was back at my grandma's house in her room, and she came out the bathroom. She had her hair in a French roll. She had on a purple dress. And I was like, Grandma, you're here. And she was like, yeah, I just needed more time. And so I remember like I felt it. So I felt like she was still alive. Yeah. And I remember like a ring of fire like had like almost like, you know, when you like light something on fire or burn something with a cigarette and how that like expands. That's how it was like in my chest. So I woke up and then realized like that was just a dream, you know. She's not on this side, but my chest still hurt. Like I felt it physically. So I didn't go to work that day. That was hard, man. I didn't understand that. Like, what do you mean you just needed more time? So I didn't want to. I was like, if it's gonna be like that, I don't want to dream. But then you would talk to me, you know, tell me. She was like, you better stop. You know how much energy it takes for them to come back and talk to you. Like,
facts.
You know. So the next time I had like a dream, we were at the grocery store, and she was like a couple people behind me, and I looked down. And all of a sudden, like the lotion she used to have, it was like it's a Vino lotion in like a purple bottle. It was there, and she just looked at me and was like that. I was like, all right. That's the last time like I like had a dream, with her in it. When my cousins came down from Jersey, she drove down just to sit with me and talk with me. Her grandma, like my Aunt Rita, she was somebody in the family who like. Her and God like this.
Yeah.
So like you come to her house, she telling you everything that all your deepest, darkest secrets. Like she knew. Like one time I was drunk up in North, like upstate New York somewhere with my friends. And like my sister was texting me, was like, what are you doing? I was like, I had a hangover. I was like, what you mean? She was like, we're at Aunt Rita's house and she's trying to have a normal conversation, but she keep calling your name.
Oh.
Like we talking like this, boom, she would say my name. Like, and so my sister was like, what are you doing? I'm up here, you know,
I'm up here drunk, sis, hungover.
So like
dehydrated.
Aunt Rita was like, you know, she was on that type of time. So my cousin was like that she saw like her grandma Aunt Rita like in the clouds, and my grandma came and sat beside her. Boy, I bust out crying. So I knew she was okay.
Is that the aunt that passed away when we both lived in Jersey?
Mm-hmm.
That was like your first like introduction like to grief. I feel like
very much
that was hard.
That was because it was in the fire. Yeah. That was when I first got my gray hairs. That's when I realized like every time I get stressed, I start getting gray hair. So I got a lot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one. But
how's my phone ringing?
Because sometimes they can hit, if they call you back to back on Do Not Disturb, it's gonna come through. So I put it on sleep.
I'm sorry. I'm
It's
listening.
it's okay.
Put this joint on sleep.
Um, there's one time, the most recent time, well, not most recent, but one time, like I was in the park. I walked from work because this when my mom was still like she didn't have like the job yet, so we met up in the park across the street from my job.
Yeah.
And we sitting out there on the bench talking. It's this big old burly dog, child, bumping down the, with his owner. And then it comes like beelining towards me. And the lady like trying to like reel it back. And here come this big old, I said, oh Lord, not this big old dog. And it just put his head in my lap, like and just rested. And then she told me, she was like, that's Loretta.
That was the dog's name, right? I
What,
remember you.
that's my grandmom's name. Oh my God. When I tell you,
telling me that.
I cried so hard. It's just been like little moments like that that I try to hold on to. Like my grandma had these jewelry boxes that I wanted for years. And, she wanted them to go to, her daughters, which I had to respect that. So, but then I'm out going antique. I don't like, I don't like going outside the house. So I definitely don't want to go antique shopping or whatever. Like my mom and them be wanting to do.
Stores. I hate them. My dad used to love antique stores.
I don't want to, but I said yes this day, and we went and we found like a jewelry box. You know what I mean? That looked just like that one. We found some ones that looked just like the dressers that used to be in her, room. So it's been little moments. And then when y'all told me about like cardinals and what they symbolize, and I realized like 2 of them come and sit in my backyard sometimes.
Oh wow!
And I don't pay attention to it because that's Virginia state bird. So like I'm used to seeing them, you know what I'm saying? But then knowing the significance, like that's a loved one coming back. But the fact that 2 of them come, like I know that's my grandma and my pop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
they definitely flying high right now. They enjoying. Like that's the thing, man. I think that like once you can kind of like leave the mundane behind and you can leave the sorrow behind, then you can really ask God to help you tap in.
Yeah.
They having fun.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like it's not what we think, but it's also a transition for them too. When you first leave your life, it is a transition. But it doesn't have to be like we don't have to continue to look at our loved ones that passed on as like such a daunting and dark thing. And I know that that's like easier said than done because I don't know what I'm going to do when my mom passes and she's had some life scares. That's actually her texting me right now. And I just need to make sure that she's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where do you really believe in God if you continue to be choked up on grief? Like, do you really trust God? Are you a true believer?
Yeah.
Like you can't be. If you don't trust that God will provide and make way and make room for you, you're not believing fully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I remember Brandon used to say all the time, I don't know how you doing this, dog. He used to say it all the time. Yo, you go through so much. I don't know how you go through so much and you still out here rocking. You still out here standing.
Right.
You still out here moving. He was inspired by that. And I know that also sometimes I don't always want to be the one that's resilient. I don't always want to be the one to have the answers.
Right.
I don't always want to be the one to answer the call. Grief has taken so much from me. I speak of it very calmly now, but grief has taken so much of me. I had my most recent ex-partner felt like I lacked empathy, and I really had to ponder on that because when I'm in the hospital setting, empathy is all I have. And I realized that I'm depleting myself. And the empathy that I do have, it's being depleted.
Wow.
And I'm not able to give it to myself. I'm not really giving it to my loved ones like that. I'm not giving it to the people that's in closest proximity to me, including myself. So now where I stand is just like, how do I give to myself more? How do I give to my loved ones more? How do I show up better? And how do I continue to be thankful for my loved ones that have passed on? I do a lot of ancestral veneration. I think of them often. I thank them for everything. I thank them for their joy. I thank them for their pain. I thank them for everything. And I think that it recently came to me that, like, the saying of, like, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams. I don't believe in that anymore, because I do, but let me explain. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams when you are doing effective work here on earth. If you are not doing effective work, I'm not saying the work. Everyone says doing the work. I'm not talking about doing the work.
Right.
Because a lot of us got jobs and we ain't going nowhere. I'm talking about doing effective work. Your ancestors are depending on you.
Yeah.
Not even just sitting, like, I don't know why we think they sitting around class. Yeah, no, they're depending on you to break generational trauma. They're depending on you to break generational curses and toxic cycles. That is when you can stand tall and say that you're your ancestors' wildest dreams, because they really did dream you. They dreamt you. You really are their dream. And it would be a complete waste if we sit up here and we refuse to move on.
Yeah.
To do the effective work. We're not honoring them. We're not honoring ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not honoring God. We're not honoring the mission. So that's why I get through. That's how I get through today. I just know that I have a lot of work to do. And for 4 years, I was down.
Yeah.
4 years, I lost myself. I did things that I now know that moving forward, I won't do. You know, I took on things that I don't want to say I shouldn't have, because nothing happens by mistake, but moving forward, I might not do. I'm not going to do. But I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
I don't live life with regrets.
Right.
And I'm just thankful.
Yeah. Same, man. I know this is like, same. The past 4 years have been very hard. But, like, I feel like I can see myself, like, rounding the corner, like, for the first time. Like, I don't, even though, I cried, today, like, talking about certain things, it wasn't as hard as it used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I could just, I'm looking forward to, like, what this fall is going to be like for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hopefully I can, my body don't remember this, because I can sleep and, all of those things. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit sensitive to death in a way, like seeing it depicted, like seeing grandma's past, like, always hurts. You know what I mean? Mother's past, like, the thing that made me cry the hardest in Pachinko was when the girl was dying and she was like, I'm going to sleep now. I think just the finality of it, like, I bawled, like, so certain things still hurt me a little bit, but it doesn't stay.
Right.
Like, I have a different understanding of it now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's all you could hope for, is to feel it when it comes, but to also release it just the same. I think it's when we fail to release. And it's not just bad things that we should release, or like hurt feelings that we should release. We should also release good. So that more good can come in.
Yeah.
We just have to release, feel it all, take it all in, and release. And just allow that to be a practice, so that when trying times do come up, if you're able to release good times, when trying times come, I feel like you're just better equipped. And yeah, man. Yo, shout out to I wanna say shout out to my buddy Andrew. What?
Nothing.
You thought I was gonna say
I
something
know who
crazy.
he's shouting out this time.
Nah, shout out to my buddy Andrew. He passed away years ago from a drug overdose, unfortunately. And that was my good friend from high school. And he always believed in me, man. He came to me. That was the first person that really came to me in a vivid dream.
Wow.
That's the first time that I traveled to another dimension and we met up, we linked up. He came to me, but he didn't talk. And I was just asking all these questions. He did not talk. But he smiled and he nodded his head and kind of looking at me like, you don't understand yet, but I wanted to see you and I just wanted you to know I'm good. You know what I mean? So shout out to Andrew. I wanted to bring him into the conversation. And there's gonna come time when we're not here. And I can't tell people not to cry for me, but what I can ask for is to release it just the same.
Yeah.
You know, don't let it drown you. Release it. I wouldn't want anyone to drown.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of us, yo.
Me too.
That next grief series is gonna be hard though. I don't know.
Keeps me awake at night. Not gonna lie. I need you to.
I'm ready to knock some heads off. I don't know.
Lead the way, cause I ain't got it.
I'm proud of us with this grief series because this is our form of like releasing.
Yeah.
We're feeling it. Not that we're not going to continue to feel. Like grief stays with you forever. It's just how you handle it. And maybe grief doesn't stay with you forever. Maybe it's just like a period of time and then it transforms into something different. But I'm just thankful that we're not where we were.
Yes.
I'm thankful that we're starting to get our footing. We're able to walk. We're able to breathe again. We're able to sit down and have these conversations. And I think the takeaway that I want people to have from this conversation is that your loved ones are still around. We don't really live in a society where we continue to talk about them in a real, tangible way.
Yeah.
But we should still be honoring our loved ones. We should still be thinking of them, even on a daily basis. Why not? When you pray, you should talk to them when you pray. Why not? Talk to them. They talk back. They really do. And until you get your foot in on a spiritual level, they gonna talk to you like your little baby Goo Gaga Tyler. shout out my ancestors that talked to me like that once. Like, God, you don't understand. It's okay. But they taught me that everything happens for a reason, and they taught me balance. And to remember that even when bad times are happening, especially when bad times happen, that everything happens for a reason. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Life is about balance. You can't have all good. You can't have all bad. You have everything. And shout out to my ancestors. Shout out to my loved ones. And shout out to y'all loved ones. Shout out to everybody. Free Palestine.
Free them.
Free the Congo. Free Haiti. Free Ethiopia. Sudan, Australia, not Australia, child. Yeah, free Australia. Them Aboriginals out there going through.
Yeah.
Free them. But what I meant to say is free Hawaii. And I'm sure there's other places, child. Free us.
Right.
And yeah, man. You got anything else to say?
I don't.
That's it, that's all?
That's it, that's all. Send us home.
So yeah, this is episode 6, Grief Series 101, Loss of a Loved One. This is the 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗲 podcast where passions and purpose align. And I'm proud of us for aligning it.
Me too.
Yeah, man. I don't got nothing else to say, dog.
We out.
We out.